Okay, good afternoon. Andrew Skillen, CEO of Hockey Victoria. Over the last month or so, I've been catching up with a number of presidents across the affiliate network, and throughout the year been having a number of conversations with our regional constituent. Because we want to make sure that we're communicating where we think the organisation needs to go in the next 4 years. This short video will be used, and we've prepared it so that the clubs around Victoria can actually table this video with your committees as a club and key personnel within the clubs to give us some feedback on the draft that we're preparing for 2017 to 2020. In my conversations with presidents, I've gone over the key areas of that plan, so they'll be reasonably familiar with the details that will be supported by this video. But I encourage you to use the information captured in the video and in the documentation that we've distributed to digest, discuss, and then provide us feedback. So I'm going to use the video and take a few minutes to take you through the journey and why we've got to the draft that we've got to at this stage. So if I go through a little bit of the background, many of you will be aware that in the last 4 years we've really focused on a couple of key elements. We wanted to make sure that we were relevant out in the school system and in our recruitment area. So we made sure that we ramped up our resources and the effort and the work that we did in the primary school sector, and we had a real mandate of growth over that period of time. In our 2013-2016 strategic plan, which of course I've got here, and of course titled Growing Our Game, we talked about the need to grow and be relevant. We said that we were going to go out and see 150,000 school kids between the ages of, or under the age of 10, and we went out and did that. And we've done that in partnership with the clubs through our roadshow program, and through that we've been able to grow, which is terrific. We set out to hit 25,000 participants. We haven't done that, but at least we've had a positive trend in over that period of time. Net result, we've had about 1,500 new participants, and they're largely under the age of 12. So that's really good for us in the future as we start to see those numbers progress through the different age groups in our junior section. And we've also, through that period of time, really focused on sustainability of our clubs by increasing the number of workshops, the number of times that we liaise with our presidents, focus groups, etc., to make sure that we're starting to talk about what it means to be sustainable in the future. During that period of time, we've also embarked on a number of initiatives around being largely inclusive and ensuring that our sport is seen by the wider community as one that is relevant to men, women, boys, girls, and a diverse population. So during that time, we've embarked on initiatives like Fair Go Sport, Women's Round, Men's Round, and programs for people with a disability. So we certainly set out to be that safe, welcoming community sport for all Victorians, and I think proudly we can certainly share that with many of our stakeholders. So they were the things that we really wanted to do. We've been pretty aggressive during that period of time, so we know that we've tested our clubs. And so if we think about what we've learned during that period of time, I often say to the president or others that we now really know what our capability and capacity is. We've during that time, as we've gone out to the schools, we've got a real sense for what our conversion rates are and how many kids we get in return for that investment. And this year we spent a little bit of time going to some extra schools to see what impact that would have in terms of our return. And what we know is whilst we could go and see twice as many kids in the school system, or we could go and do twice as much in this particular initiative, the reality is we need to be very conscious about the resources and the volunteers that we have in our club network. And that's what I mean by capacity and capability. We've got some terrific people across the Victorian community that do outstanding things. We want to be able to maintain that, but we also don't want to burn people out. So whilst the last 4 years have been aggressive, we do know what our capability and capacity is. So some people have been stretched. We've used the league entry criteria to start to bind together a lot of the participation elements of what we've been working on, to link that through to making sure that all of our clubs are set up in a sustainable fashion by having strong governance and making sure that we improve the facilities across Victoria so that when people are participating, regardless of the level of the sport, that they're actually participating in a really good environment. So that's something that we've approved, the LEC. It's obviously a big change for our sport, but a really exciting one that sees us really link growth in participation and sustainability together. So that's what we've learned. Now to what we think we need to do, and as I mentioned earlier, this is certainly a draft, and I wanted to take everyone through this today. So again, you get some more context around where I'm coming from and where the organisation's coming from. Gives you a great chance to absorb that and give us some feedback. So when we look at our new plan, or our proposed plan, we've broken it into three kind of key areas, and they are traditional hockey, which ultimately is you. It's the clubs, it's the associations, the people that live and breathe what we know as the 11-a-side hockey game. And we need to continually support you guys and continually embed a number of the programs and consolidate a number of the programs we've introduced in the last number of years. And that is continuing to make sure that we focus in on the recruitment programs and embed the league entry criteria across our Premier League and into some other competitions during that time. The other thing that we need to focus in on is new social formats, and for a number of years now we've been reminded by the Sports Commission and the industry more broadly about how important it is that we're agile and we innovate and we make sure that our sport delivers products that are going to be accessible to a new cohort and a wider community, because we need to make sure that we can generate that interest to be relevant and to generate the revenue we need to survive as a business and a whole sport into the future. And the final piece is around improved administration. Ultimately, as Hockey Victoria and the staff, we're the custodians of the sport. We want to make sure that we deliver that to the best of our ability and make sure that we're looking after your interests as we go about our day-to-day business. So if I take you through a few of the goals that we've certainly got to through our internal process, some discussions with the board, and certainly a number of different discussions with some presidents and different affiliates over the last few months. One of the key goals we want to achieve by the year 2020 is to be ranked #1 in Australia for performance at national championships and certainly national representation. We've put a lot of time and effort in the last couple of years into our junior academy, and we see ourselves embedding those programs as well in the next number of years, and the byproduct of that being some really consistent high-performing results at national championships going forward. We see ourselves progressing to 26,000 registered participants in hockey clubs, with a focus on 50% female participation. Again, we go back 4 years, we set out to grow. Yes, we've done that. We're going to be at about 22,500 participants at the end of this year. So realistically, if we keep on the trend that we're starting to see now, we believe we'll be at 26,000 participants across Victoria in our club network. Of that 26,000, we would like to think that 10% of those, 10%, 2,600, are accredited, registered, and importantly active coaches in the Victorian hockey community. And you'll start to see us introduce a lot more professional development over from next year to support coaches actively to ensure that more people are providing a really good service to the players and the clubs. More importantly, arguably, certainly from feedback that we get, that 10% of that population are also accredited, registered and active officials and umpires in our community. We know that the game can't go ahead without umpires, and it's critically important that we all collectively work at that over the next 4 years. We want to make sure we maintain the strong, sustainable hockey clubs throughout Victoria, but we're also nimble enough to make sure that we're creating new clubs in a number of the growth corridors. And we'd like to think that in the next 4 years we'll certainly develop 5 new clubs in those outer suburban regions. Strong clubs will of course be maintained through our continued efforts and support of the league entry criteria. In the new format section, we think it's critically important that we engage new participants and re-engage old participants. We know that on an annual basis we actually lose around about 16% on a churn for people that played hockey the year before who don't come back. But we know that people do come back. So how do we stop that churn? How do we reduce that churn? And how do we re-engage people that have used to play the game that perhaps scheduling or timing or the thought of joining a hockey club again is something that they don't feel comfortable with? So Certainly in that new space, we want to attract 15,000 new people to our sport by the year 2020. But those 15,000 people won't be people that are turning up to become a member of your hockey club. There'll be 15,000 people on a user-paid product, just like touch football, just like Aussie Nines, AFL Nines, futsal, a number of other examples of social participation will be engaging in our sport. Why this is critical to you as the hockey club, why it's critical to us as Hockey Victoria, is we absolutely need to generate revenue from other sources. Alright, and that is why it is fundamentally important. And whilst only a small percentage or a number of these people that are re-engaged or newly engaged into the sport may one day become a member of your hockey club and play in the winter in an 11-a-side format, the reality is we really need to engage these new people to remain relevant and generate revenue. So there's just a handful of some of our key goals. In the information that I send out to the clubs, there's a lot more context to those 6 goals, which gives you a little bit more in-depth rationale about the why and the how in each of those goals. I'll take a deep breath. I'll move down to the how. So, if we look at the how, I mentioned before improved administration, and something that we've had a really detailed conversation as a staffing group about more recently, and that is how we go about our day-to-day business. We want to make sure that by the year 2020, our member satisfaction levels with our customer service is around about 90%. Whilst that's aspirational, it's really important to us that we are an administration that you as clubs and people associated with hockey feel comfortable about talking to, liaising with, to make sure that your sport becomes better. We want to make sure that we prioritise infrastructure projects and we innovate to improve the accessibility to facilities. We believe we need to be more active with state government. We need to be more active with local governments to make sure that we're getting our fair share of the pie when it comes to facility infrastructure compared to other sports. 90% of our participants and key stakeholders are satisfied with the quality and coordination and management of our competitions and events. We understand that it is the bread and butter of what we do. And it's important that we make sure we remain diligent to our competitions, we improve umpiring, and we make sure that that experience that someone's having on a Monday night, a Wednesday night, a Friday night, a Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon is one that they really enjoy, and therefore they'll want to come back each year. We want to maintain and develop our partnerships and relationships with our key stakeholders, VIS, Hockey Australia, local government authorities. Okay, we want to make sure that we continually maintain those strong partnerships and are able to progress. Through our partners, we've had great success in the last number of years with obtaining some external support from sponsors, and we want to make sure that we maintain that and build on that in the coming years. One thing we're really big on, and I think it's certainly something that needs to be focused on across the whole country, and that is a defined brand which new members to hockey and our existing members feel welcome and appreciated and celebrated. Bit wordy, I know, a bit of a motherhood statement, but I think it's about us making sure that we're really clear about what hockey is. It's probably had a tendency across national level and state level to be very high performance heavy in terms of our image. And we think it's really important that we start to sell ourselves as certainly a sport and an activity that is something that everyone can participate in. And I think there's clearly a way that we can present that to make sure that's achievable. The other thing that we're certainly really conscious of is technology. We need to make sure that our digital presence continues to improve, and our progress in technology streamlines not only our administration, but assists the clubs in streamlining their administration, making life easier for the volunteer who's currently out there in our system. And we think that there's certainly some really exciting steps we can make in the next couple of years around streamlining that administration process around our competition. So my final statement and advice to the clubs, please read through the documentation around the goals and the how. Take the time over the next month or so to have a discussion with the committee, with key people around the club. Provide us with some feedback. Try and limit it to a page. We do have 148 hockey clubs around Victoria, and look, we do appreciate your feedback, but try and keep it concise, keep it high level, and we'll certainly take that on board as we refine our strategy before the end of the year. Thank you.